We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Thursday, April 10th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're joining us on News Generation. Joining us this Thursday is Cheska Dainha.
Happy Thursday, everyone!
Happy Thursday! And Julian Kim.
Happy Thursday morning.
Happy Thursday morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. We're going to begin our show with our keyword news. Our keyword for today is tariff. Stock markets around the world are fluctuating wildly following U.S. President Donald Trump's imposition of sweeping tariffs on key trading partners. Major global indexes plunged on Wednesday on the imposition of massive tariffs on what Trump called the, quote, worst offenders. Here in Korea, the benchmark Kospi fell below the 2,300 mark for the first time in nearly a year and a half. Asian markets, along with European and Australian stocks, also saw sharp declines. However, after President Trump announced a 90-day pause on some of these tariffs, U.S. stocks rebounded sharply. Many investors are now concerned about what this roller coaster ride could mean for their portfolios moving forward. So I want to ask you, how's your investment portfolio looking, and are you also worried about losses based on this fluctuating stock market situation?
Well, honestly, it's not really that shocking, but yes, I am definitely very worried about this. Now, this is all pretty new, so I am trying to just keep a close eye on this situation that keeps developing each day, because this happened pretty recently, so we don't really know how things will play out in the future. So yes, a volatile market is definitely something to take very seriously, but for now, personally for me, I'm just trying to stay focused on the long term and just trying to see how things play out.
All right, what do you think, Jessica?
I mean, I've been hearing a lot of testimonials from people who have a lot of investment, and obviously because the US market affects the global market, it is no surprise at all. Doesn't mean it's looking good at the moment. I know the exchange rate is also fluctuating very heavily.
Right.
I did hear some reports that some ASEAN countries are trying to work cooperatively, and also here in South Korea, the acting president is sending a trade team to talk to the American counterparts. So I really hope situations sort of stabilize, because as we all know, the American market affects the global market, and I know people are getting a little bit anxious, scared and nervous about how this is going to all pan out and affect the global market in general.
So hopefully we'll see some stability soon.
I hope so. Yeah.
All right, that was our keyword news for this Thursday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Thursday means it's time to talk about the Korean wave and the global appeal of Korean culture. Take a look at the screen for more on today's topic. This week, car lovers in Korea are buzzing with excitement. The Seoul Mobility Show, Korea's biggest and most iconic auto event, kicked off last Friday and is now in full swing. Celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, the show isn't just about shiny new cars. It provides a snapshot of where mobility and innovation are heading next. Today on News Gen, we're diving into Korea's car culture, especially among the younger generations. Right, so we prepared this episode today in light of the 30th anniversary of the Seoul Mobility Show. So for those who might be hearing about this show, this event for the first time, could you please give us a brief rundown of what this event is?
Yes, and as you mentioned, I also did a bit of research, and the Seoul Mobility Show started way back in 1995.
Right.
So this year is actually its 30th anniversary. It will be held at Kintex, which is in Ilsan, for 10 days, from Friday, April 4th to Sunday, April 13th, which is this weekend. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go catch it.
Right.
And just to give details of this exciting event to those who might be interested, the website shared a few key insights that I want to share with our viewers. First, it's all mobility and vehicles related, but not just the road, but to sea and air. And if you really like cars, I think this one's definitely for you. So global car brands are showcasing their new models for the very first time. So you'll be very excited to see some new models, and Julian will elaborate a little bit more. And lastly, this was pretty cool. So on the website, they had a title called Beyond Boundaries. So it's all about future tech, self-driving, AI, which is a hot keyword, robotics and technological innovation. And obviously when it comes to mobility, it's all about tech, right? So I'm quite excited to see how much technological innovation can really go into our mobility in the future as well.
It does sound like a very fascinating event. Then Julian, could you please break us down on what kind of things we can see at this Seoul Mobility Show this year?
Yeah, so South Korea is the world's 5th largest automotive producer in the world. So Hyundai and Kia, which are well-known Korean brands, will display many of their vehicles as well as some of their concept models that they're working on too. For example, Hyundai will showcase their new fuel cell vehicle called the Nexo. But it's not just these two companies. Around 200 companies and related organizations, including automakers like Mercedes too, will part suppliers, batteries, semiconductors, and display companies will be also participating in this event too. Now, notable companies such as Lotte and BYD too will be showcasing their latest technology, which will be very interesting to see. It's a great way to get some insight on the Korean automotive and technology industry. So if you have time and are interested to learn more, I highly recommend checking it out.
Right, so it's definitely like a global gathering of some of the biggest auto giants around the world. So please check it out. It runs once again until this Sunday, which is April 13th. But we're now going to shift gears and zoom in on car culture here in Korea. So from what we've seen recently, it feels like the younger generation's view of cars is shifting. So Cheska, would you say that young people today kind of see cars differently from older generations?
Yes, and Eugene, shifting gears. I love that.
Glad you noticed that.
I definitely always catch those. I love those. I believe so, and we have some stats to explore this social change. I mean, I know for a fact that for our parents' generation, and Eugene, you might agree, I think for owning a car back in the day was not just for convenience, but very symbolic.
Right.
I think it represented financial independence and abundance, and it can be an incredibly powerful motive for our generation, our parents' generation, right? But coming to our generation, and I spoke about this in our previous episodes, I don't own a car in Korea, let alone drive often. And I have a lot of friends who chose not to buy one, like myself. So if we take a look at the screen, we can see the actual change in numbers as well. Now, according to Korea's Automobile Association, you can already see the difference in starting point for those in 30s and 20s. And in 10 years, both age groups actually decreased their purchase by around 22 to 24%. So this actually reflects how our generation is considering when it comes to purchasing car options as compared to an older generation when I think they had a more powerful motive, both symbolic and financially, to actually purchase a car. Yeah.
Right, because back in the days, many were kind of talking about what their dream car is.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it doesn't really feel that it's part of a really big life goal.
Right, and I think, and we'll talk about this more, the financial burden of being a younger generation in this particular generation, I think is quite hefty. So when it comes to that, I think cars are more considered a luxury rather than a necessity. Yeah.
So once again, in short, owning a car is considered less necessary than it once was. But for those who do decide to get behind the wheel, Julian, which car models are the most popular here in Korea?
Yeah, so I would say this is actually very similar to the people of my generation back home in California. But many of us millennials and Gen Zers like to generally purchase used cars over newer cars here in Korea as well. My first car was actually a used Toyota Camry too. But when it comes to the type of cars too, unlike the older generation who tend to go for more larger vehicles, we prioritize practicality and cost effectiveness though when we're looking for cars too. So as a result, we tend to go for more compact or mid-sized vehicles too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so according to the used car industry, the top 5 most popular models amongst millennials and Gen Zers in 2020-23 were the Hyundai Avante AD, Hyundai Sonata DN8, Kia Ray, the third generation Kia K5, and Hyundai Grandeur IG.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah.
You read all of the models out.
Yeah. So among them, the Grandeur is the only full-size sedan, while the rest are just more compact and mid-sized models too.
And I think that I'm also part of this trend because the car I'm driving right now is a used one. So it's about 14 years old. My dad drove it for like 10 years. So I think I'm part of the MZ generation who is using used cars. So Jessica, I also want to ask you whether you're noticing this used car craze among young people as well.
Oh, I absolutely agree with Julian. And also, I'm surprised that you are also part of that generation. We have a sample right here next to us. I can also give my personal opinion. So I've lived in New Zealand and New York. And this was 20 plus years ago when I first moved to New Zealand. And since back then, we always purchased a used car or a secondhand car. And it had nothing to do with financial reasons, but because it was a cultural norm in Western countries, just like Julian mentioned. And they have some great cars that are still secondhand car. And I'm seeing this trend actually happening in Korea as well, which I'm noticing. And it's quite something new because I think Koreans are more used to buying brand new cars.
Right.
So according to 농협 Bank, which analyzed the card payment details of the 20s and 30s, the number of used car payment increased by 30% in the first half of 2024 compared to 2023. And in fact, I can actually vouch for this as well. If you live in a well-developed city like Seoul, I think unless you have a very specific reason to travel to someplace or to have to go to work, I don't think owning a car is the most ideal option. And I think it's happening to a lot of young people because of the increasing financial burden. We have to admit you already have to pay for living, rent, and on top of that, having vehicle maintenance costs, and you have taxes, insurance premiums, and the gas prices.
Gas prices.
The gas prices. The numbers just keep piling up, and it's a huge burden for a lot of young people. And that is why I think Julian would agree, like cities like New York City and Manhattan, where owning a car is one of the stupid options. Because you can walk everywhere. And there's a joke that says New York people know how to fast walk, but they never know how to drive. My younger sister and mom live in the city, and they both sold their cars. And with that money, they just travel or they renovated their kitchen. So I think that's why it's becoming popular to some of the younger people as well.
And these are some of the reasons that could really show why we are seeing less young people actually obtaining their driver's license, right, Julian?
Yes, so this is actually very, very interesting for me to learn. But in the past, it was very commonplace to get your driver's license after graduating high school here in Korea. But lately, amongst young people, the number of new driver's license holders actually been sharply declining too. Now, there is actually a global trend to this known as the anti-driving culture within our generation that is showcasing just how reluctant millennials and Gen Zers are when it comes to driving. For example, in the United States, 90% of people ages 20 to 25 had a driver's license in 1997, but by 2020, that number has dropped to 80%. In the United Kingdom, the percentage of teenagers with a license fell from 41% in 2002 to just 21% today. Now, that is a 20% decrease, so that is a very significant amount just in like 20 years too. So I found it very, very interesting because when I was 16 years old back in America, as soon as I turned 16, I rushed to the DMV to get my driver's license. So this is a very new trend that is very interesting to learn about.
Same here, because I got my driver's license the moment I ended my college entrance exam, the moment I turned like 19 here in Korea. Then Jessica, I want to ask you, what's driving young people away from driving altogether?
What's driving people away, I wonder. And I absolutely agree with both of you because I think, and I'm a bit shocked too, because getting a license was sort of a coming of age kind of ceremony for...
It was kind of like a symbol, right?
Yeah, right. So even, especially in the States, I'm surprised about the stats because I remember in high school, there was a class dedicated to helping...
Get your license?
Yes.
Wow.
High school students actually get a license, get a learner's permit. So I'm surprised that there is an actual change. So I don't think this is just social perception, but actual social change that's happening. So South Korea's public transportation is truly magnificent and convenient and has been improving gradually from the past. And I think physical mobility has been replaced by a lot of things that are happening online. For instance, we shop online, we even watch movies and hang out with friends online. So there isn't much desperate or dire need to actually move or drive to be somewhere to do something. We can sit very comfortably in the safety of our home and get everything done.
Absolutely. So to dig a little deeper on today's topic, we also asked our viewers, if you don't own a car, why not? We ran a poll on our Arirang YouTube channel with 3 choices. It's too expensive, 2, I simply don't need one, and 3, I'm fine with using a family car. If you look at the results, 54% chose too expensive, followed by no need for one, and finally using family cars. And we're going to take a look at 3 comments as well. Our first comment for this Thursday is by Phoebe SXTXRX. Public transport is convenient. You don't have to park and it helps lessen pollution. Riding a bike also keeps you fit. Daniel 108247. Singapore has a flawed police policy on car ownership, so it is one of the most expensive places to have a car. Mr. Richard 1280 says, no need for a car. I live within walking distance of the stores that sell groceries and other items. So to take this discussion global, after the break, we'll bring in a Gen Z guest from the US to share what car culture looks like over there. Stick around.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
We're pleased to welcome Brittany Schmidt, an American Gen Z, to our show today. Welcome back to the show, Brittany.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, Brittany, in your experience, do a lot of young Americans still drive? And what would you estimate in terms of percentage?
So, while recent trends indicate a decline in the number of young Americans obtaining their driver's licenses, America's transportation is still very car-centric. While you might be able to get away with not owning a car in more densely populated areas like New York or LA, having a personal vehicle in more rural areas like the one I personally grew up in is a necessity still. We had absolutely no public transportation, and while ride sharing is available, it's not as reliable as with more populous cities. And almost nothing is walkable. So while the trends indicate a decline, a survey conducted in 2023 revealed 87% of American respondents have access to a personal vehicle in their household.
I'm not surprised because when I lived in the States, I definitely knew the importance of owning a car when you live in a certain district or location. So what are the most popular car brands or models among young drivers in the US? Because as you talked about, in the US, there is this trend of buying secondhand or used car as well.
Yes, so I would say that Honda is the most popular car brand, with models like the Accord being particularly favored. And then other popular brands would include Toyota, Nissan, Hyundai, and Kia have always dominated the market when it comes to younger drivers due to their affordability, reliability, and fuel efficiency. And they also last a really long time, so many young Americans will get them as their used car. I remember when I was looking for my first car when I was 16, and my mom wouldn't even let me look at American brands, and I ended up getting a Nissan Altima.
Great. So here in Korea, many young people feel like driving isn't a must. Do you agree? And what is your take? I am actually really curious to hear more.
I absolutely agree. And it's one of my favorite things about living in Seoul. So the infrastructure for public transportation is just unmatched. And on top of that, it being built to be a walkable city, there hasn't been a time that I've lived here that I wish that I had a car. Plus, I see how narrow the roads can be here. There's no parking, and the traffic can be absolutely atrocious. So I feel like in contrast to America, owning a car in Korea is more of a status symbol than a necessity.
I see. All right. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So ending off, let's wrap up with some practical advice for those who don't drive or don't plan to drive anytime soon here in Korea. What tips would you give them so that they can get around the country more efficiently?
Oh, I think I should be invited as an expert guest for that topic because I have literally been navigating Korea that way for the past 6-7 years, I would say. And while we can go on and on about the amazingness of the public transportation, I would also like to suggest that I've had some pretty great results with cabs. So here in Korea, they have the apps that you can call the cab, but also the fact of the matter is if you're a busy worker in your 20s and 30s, when you call a cab, it saves you so much time. Not just the driving, but sometimes I would just sit at the back of the seat, rest a little bit, do some reading. I've gotten a lot of work done. And also, secondly, I think you actually get to appreciate the people in the service industry a lot. And lastly, and most importantly, if you're the young person, there's absolutely no financial burden of having to own a car, maintain a car, pay the taxes or the gas prices. So I think those are some of the great benefits of enjoying the cab rides to navigate.
So looking into ride-hailing services.
Yeah, those are some of the good ones. Yeah.
What do you suggest, Julian?
Well, just like how we've been mentioning over and over again, this country is known for having one of the best public transportation systems here in in the entire world, actually. So there are buses, trains, subways, and even taxis, like Jessica has mentioned. If having a car is too difficult to travel around. Now, I travel around this country without a car half the time, and it isn't as difficult compared to like my home country where I felt really, really trapped without having a car. And I do want to mention too that if you don't want to buy a car, but you still want to drive, there is that option here too. Mobile car sharing services are very, very convenient and are great alternative to those who want to have the option to drive, but don't necessarily want to buy or rent a car long term. You can rent a car by the hour, which is actually very, very convenient, which makes it very flexible for your schedule as well as for your budget too. And if you're traveling somewhere where public transportation isn't as great compared to a city like Busan or Seoul, it's a great option, and renting a car for just a little bit can be very convenient and helpful to traveling too.
Car renting services. So a lot of services you can try out regarding transportation here in Korea. And that's all we have for today, but NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Cheska Dainha.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Julian Kim.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow on Friday. We are
News Generation.